lot of people are freaking out right now about world news and world events. So what I want to do is, I don't normally talk about this, but I want to give you a way to navigate your way through all of this. Okay, I want to explain actually what's really going on apart from what you're hearing in the news. This is not conspiracy theory, by the way. This is from highly credible sources, one of which is Ray Dalio, who's regarded as probably the greatest historical macro investor of all time. His company spends $300 million a year on research. So what we want to do right now is that we want to just cover the basics of what I call the big picture. So right now, people are addicted to watching the news. You know, I get stuff all the time about this and that, and people are just stuck on the drama level, which is not going to help you psychologically, and it's not going to help you navigate a path through all of this. Okay, so we want to look at the big picture. If you're lost in the woods, in the forest, you don't get down on the ground and look around, okay? That's like watching the news. You need to get to the top of the hill where you've got a vantage point and you can find out what's going on. Not only that, the big picture actually determines the drama and the news. It's far better to understand that. So let's look at what's going on in the US right now. So I think most people could agree the current leadership of the United States would not have been there 30 years ago. So what's changed? What's different? Okay. Well, you've got a situation now where one of the leading indicators is two major leading indicators and other minor leading indicators of social upheaval and social unrest. One, the first is you've got massive government debt and a lot of pension funds, and I don't want to go into this in detail because we're just going to get bogged down, because I'm more actually interested in the back end of my brief talk about how you navigate your way through all of this. So if you want to find out more about the detail of how bonds are issued and about a lot of the big pension funds and individuals no longer want to buy the debt, okay? So the central bank in the States is having to buy the debt. So that's one of the leading indicators. The other leading indicator is huge wealth gap. Minimum wage now in the US is $7.25 an hour. Health insurance for a family, the average health insurance is $27,000 a year. I got friends, family of four, who are paying $35,000 a year. So a society only works when it works for the majority of the people, not just a few. So these are some of the conditions that are creating, this is the big picture, that's creating a lot of this drama at the bottom. Okay, so next leading indicator, the emergence of a populist leader. Okay, a populist leader is where that appeals to a section of the electorate, but not necessarily the whole electorate. Well, they've obviously got one of those. Okay, the demonization of a minority. So the Nazis demonized the Jews in the mid to late 30s. All the problems they were saying, all the problems these people, they had all your problems. So you're seeing the same thing play out right now. Okay, so there's many more leading indicators. This is the big picture that's creating the drama, the news cycle. Okay, more importantly is, if you want to find out, there's a ton of leading indicators. You go and study Dalio or other people like that, and you'll find out more. But I want to get to what you can actually do about it. Okay, so one, limit watching the news. It's not helpful. Okay, you're not finding out the big picture. It's kind of like, imagine somebody who's got a major drug problem, huge amount of recreational drugs they're taking, has an incredibly bad diet, doesn't do any exercise, is 50 k's overweight, okay, and gets sick. And all you're doing is, as a medical expert, is you're just focusing on their physical symptoms, their sickness. Well, that's the news. That's the analogies. That's like watching the news. They need to handle their lifestyle. They need to handle the big picture. So it's not helpful. You're just constantly putting this stuff in your head, which sort of leads me to something very specific, which is point two. There's your economy and there's the economy. There's your reality and there's the collective reality. So what do I mean by that in practical terms? Well, A long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I had a real estate company out in the southwest of Sydney, and that was the most successful selling agency in the area, okay, in the southwest. And we had a really big recession going on. Interest rates back then used to fluctuate from between 14 and 17%, sometimes 18%. Oh, yeah. And unemployment was high, and the recession word was in the news all the time. Okay, we haven't had a decent recession in 30 years. So there's big news. Okay, now there's about 15 agencies in that area, in a very small area in that main street, and I was just one of them. The average agency used to sell about 1 to 3 properties a month. That was each agency, roughly, right? I used to sell 18 to 25 properties a month at the same time period. Why? Because the recession word, we call it the R word, was banned in my office. We refused to acknowledge it. We refused to even contemplate that it existed. And for us, we didn't have one. There's the economy, and then there is your economy. There's the collective reality, and then there's your reality. So every time you watch the news, putting all that bad info in your head, you're just contracting. And then you won't see the opportunities. Okay? 3, refuse to be in fear. Refuse to be in fear, but be aware. Like now, if you're in the impact zone, one of the things I used to tell my kids as a metaphor is, as a surfer, when I used to surf big waves, you don't paddle into the impact zone where the waves are breaking. And I used to say to my kids, don't paddle into the impact zone. So if you're in a country where there's a serious impact zone, Australia at the moment is relatively safe, you might want to think about maybe you don't want to be there. Like in the mid to late 30s, if you were a Jew, it's probably not a good time to be in Nazi Germany, okay? But if you're not in the impact zone and things are relatively safe, it's a different set of rules, okay? Then we go back to the economy and your economy, okay? The economy and your economy, if you were a Jew in the mid to late 30s in Nazi Germany, that didn't apply. It was just bad news for a lot of them. Okay? So be in fear. Don't be in fear, but be aware. Just simply be aware, because when you're in fear, you contract, and you're just going to be like the lemmings that jump over the cliff. And the fourth one is kind of an unusual take, but it's my personal viewpoint that who you actually really are is a spiritual being. You're not a body. Yeah, you're not a mind. You're not a personality. Who you are is just way bigger than who you think you are. And if you just tap into that gives, and realize that you're a lot bigger and a lot more powerful than you are. And how do you access it? That can only be accessed in the gap between the thoughts. A busy mind, overthinking, can't get in touch with the still place where that big you really exists. It always exists, but that's the place you access it. Okay? And then you realize that you're a lot bigger than all of this drama that's going on, and that you'll be okay. All right. I hope that's useful for you, and I hope that's something that you can navigate through these times. Good luck.